Here we are, and this particular video is going to be about fantasies, right? Serial killing and fantasies. So it's mainly going to be coming out of the Fox, Levin, and Friedel book, but yeah, I'm also going to give some of my opinion. But the point of this particular video, I'm going to say some shiz, and then I want you guys to comment whether it is in YouTube or on Facebook. All right, so this is not just me lecturing you. This is me considering the reading that you had to do about fantasies. So that is in the Fox, Levin, and Friedel book, page 107 through 112. That's 5 pages. If you can't read 5 pages and give an opinion on that, then I don't know why you are in college. Sorry, that sounded kind of rude, but I mean it. So they start off talking about this Randy Kraft person. I will post maybe like a little docu video or whatever about Randy Kraft. However, Randy Kraft was sort of a, I think the word they use is sort of unextraordinary type of person, just your ordinary dude, right? That just fit in to a normal lifestyle. But it turns out that he was kind of a weirdo creep, in that he would kill young men. And he wouldn't just kill them. He would do very, very, very messed up things to them. Like, I think there's one case where he killed somebody by shoving dirt down their throat. Just think how agonizing that must be to die with someone shoving dirt down your throat until you suffocate to death. Right? So, what he would do was he would somehow lure these people in, right? He would get them to hang out with him, and at that point he would go in for the kill. I guess what was even more surprising was that he had like a family, right? He had like a regular family, wife and kids. He had a pretty stable job. I think he was in IT. But he ended up killing 67 men, right? And apparently he put up the mask of being normal so much that even today, still his family is convinced that he is innocent, despite the fact that he was found guilty of 16 murders. So after the fact, he confessed to 67 of them. But again, when it comes to serial killers, right, one thing that we don't often think about is that when they commit these crimes, they commit them in different jurisdictions, right? Serial killers aren't like, hey guys, so today I'm going to be really nice to law enforcement and just commit all my crimes in one jurisdiction to make everything nice and easy for when I eventually get caught. No, they go based off of what they think is a good decision for them, right? So if the opportunity is there to kill somebody, or if they're in a certain state of mind, maybe they're enraged, maybe they're being driven by sexual urges, or maybe it is purely instrumental, jurisdiction has nothing to do with that. So different jurisdictions have different types of law enforcement officers who are operating at different levels of competency, but also the things you leave behind per crime is different, right? Because these crimes aren't committed in a lab-like situation. There's all these contextual factors that sometimes cause more evidence to be left in one compared to the other. So that's why often when you hear, oh, you killed 67 people, but you were only charged with this many, 16 murders, or found guilty of 16 murders, it's not because of plea bargaining or anything like that. It's just those were the ones where there was compelling evidence to file charges and then also get a jury to convict them. And also, with 16 frickin' murders, if you're going to be out on the street after that, you must be really rich. You must be like Jeffrey Epstein rich. But we all know what happened to him. A lot of people would say that he did not kill himself. Now there's a fire truck. You hear this crap? Hope everyone's okay. if it's the corona? There better not be any corona in my neighborhood. Okay. So, Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. So, he was charged with, found guilty of 16, and then he ended up admitting to more. But the funny thing was when they were speaking to him about the killings, when cops were sort of just nonchalantly talking to him about it, he was very straightforward. He almost treated it like it was a project. Kind of the same way that the BTK killer spoke of his murders. So that's interesting. However, what was really interesting about Kraft was that when they found, the way he got busted was he was driving around drunk, right? And when he got pulled over, there was a freaking dead body in his car, right? So the cops were like, bro. So essentially, if you want to get away with murder, just commit the murder, right? My best piece of advice to anyone who wants to commit crime, as someone who has a PhD in criminology, law, and society, is that when you commit crime, commit one crime at a time, okay? So what I'm saying is, if you're driving around smoking weed, don't run stop signs, right? If you've just murdered someone, don't get really drunk and drive around with their body in your car. In fact, alcohol and crime don't mix. You're just going to slip up. I mean, I'm not saying go commit crime, but I'm just saying alcohol is not good. It's not good to add into the mix. But anyway, so when they finally got all the evidence, they found all these notes that were written in some weird code, which is kind of funny because he was a computer dude and he did some software coding, right? So he wrote all these notes about his murders in some sort of code that only he could understand. Moreover, he had a lot of pictures that he had taken of his victims at different stages of, maybe it was before they were killed or after they were killed or during the process of torture. Nonetheless, what we find when it comes to serial killing is that a large proportion of serial killers, or they take little mementos, they take little souvenirs, or they take pictures, or they take notes. And so the question then is, I think the actual percentage of that is, there was a percentage here. Oh yeah, so these three people, Warren, Hazelwood, and Dietz, or Dietz, whatever, they did a study of 20 sexually sadistic killers, and they found that 13 of them collected some sort of trophies, and 9 recorded the names of the people they killed in some sort of way. Right? And so that's interesting. Why would someone keep a trophy? I mean, you just committed murder. Like, I would not want to keep any evidence, right? That's your logical brain saying, don't keep any evidence. But they do it nonetheless. And that, in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion right here, gives us some sort of insight, right? In why are they willing to take that risk? Well, that's because many of these serial killers start off with fantasy. It doesn't matter necessarily what drives you to want to kill someone, but at some point in their lives, they are interested in killing people. Whether it's for sexual gratification or whether there's some other dynamic to it. But there's this fine line, though, between sex and murder, especially in the sense that serial killers do it. The reason why I say that is that both of these acts are very intimate. And you don't get many serial killers, especially not sadistic serial killers, who like to use guns. They like to be up close. They like to torture. They like to watch the life leave They're victims. Now, these people aren't necessarily normal in the sense that, the average Joe or average Jill, we don't want to kill people. So I would think the only way for us to really be able to relate to that is to think about intimacy. Because I think that's one of the things that many people fantasize about at some stage in their lives. Right? Think about some fantasies that you might have in your life. And how those fantasies have driven your behavior. It doesn't have to be sexual. I just think sexual fantasies are more closely related to the types of fantasies we're talking about when it comes to serial killers. But it can be fantasies of financial success or financial independence or maybe some sort of career aspiration. But those are more rational or logical fantasies, right? These are fantasies that are based in some sort of rationality. There's this instrumental aspect to them. Oh, I'm going to make a lot of money, or whoa, I'm going to be able to be a professor one day, right? Those are more instrumental, but I think the fantasies regarding intimacy, like sex stuff and murder, are more emotional, less rational. I mean, think about like killing someone and shoving dirt down their throat. That is not super rational. Killing someone because you caught them having sex with your husband is a little more rational, right? There's more instrumentality to that. There's a reason for it. There's something you get out of it. Or killing someone because they've got a lot of drugs that you can now take and sell. That has some sort of instrumentality to it. But watching someone slowly die because you want to watch someone slowly die because that makes you feel good, that is not rational in a sense. Similarly, when it comes to weird sex fetishes, like let's use foot fetishes for example. Why? Why do those exist? Can someone please tell me why foot fetishes even exist? We don't know, but some people are really into it. And if you ask them, hey, what's your deal with feet? I don't know, I just really like them, right? That's how those people would respond. And there's a gazillion other weird fetishes. I know there's like a fetish where people lick eyeballs. Why they're into that, there's nothing to me that makes sense there. And to the people who are into that stuff, it doesn't make sense to them either. But there's something in them that says, that's what I want. And that is fantasy. That's what they're born out of. And with the average person, it's sex stuff. And it's not the same for each person. Like each person has their own thing. But with a certain amount of sadistic serial killers, it involves death. And it's not even the same with all serial killers. What I mean is that Jeffrey Dahmer killed people differently than Randy Kraft, than the BTK killer. But I would say all of them had some aspect of fantasy packed into their killing behavior. What I guess the connection between sexual intimacy and sadistic serial killing is that the urges that drive those two things are not as rational as the need to kill someone for instrumental reasons or to maybe marry someone for money or something like that. And it oftentimes doesn't make sense to the people themselves, but it is something that their gut wants. It's something that they urge or they yearn for, right? It's an urge that they're feeding. And these are based in fantasy. It doesn't matter what got you there, whether it is childhood victimization, whether it is some sort of socializing, whether it is low self-control, it is there. And it can drive your behavior. Now, when it comes to serial killing, these people are aware that their fantasies are highly, highly abnormal. At least many of them are. So to them, reaching their fantasies, making a fantasy become reality, I think means a lot more compared to the average person who is having a sexual experience that they've always wanted to have, because that is a little bit more normal. And to me, that explains why they keep these 7 souvenirs. So, another thing that they mention is that there seems to be this nexus between serial killers and watching pretty intense porn. What I mean by that is pretty hardcore pornography. Now, we can't say that we can't say that killing causes you to watch crazy porn, or like watching crazy porn causes you to kill, but we know that they exist together. There's this correlation, right? Correlation doesn't always mean causation, but we know they exist together, kind of like crime and poverty. We know that crime doesn't necessarily cause poverty, and poverty doesn't necessarily cause crime, but we know that they exist together. The same with social disorganization and crime. There's a correlation. They live together, but we don't know which one causes which. Now, with most serial killers, they tend to watch pornography that the average person would be rather disturbed by. So this can be pornography that involves choking people out to the point of death, or right before that. It could involve some illegal porn that you buy on the dark web that involves the actual rape of people, or involves children, or that ends in actual death. What they find is that a lot of serial killers who've been caught would describe they progressed through the types of pornography that they viewed. And I think some of you can identify to some extent in that when you're first exposed to pornography, I remember the first time I was exposed to it, I was like 11 years old. Some dude showed me this VHS video, and it was really just what you would consider softcore. I think he recorded Cinemax really late at night. Now, those of you who don't know about Cinemax, Cinemax is a channel, and they used to have a lot of softcore porn. And with softcore porn, I can't believe I'm talking to you, but whatever. This is in the this is not in the book, but pornography is in the book, so I can't get fired at this point anyways. But softcore porn is when you don't see a lot of vivid, depictions of sex, right? It's they're not actually having sex on camera. They're still faking having sex, whereas hardcore porn is when they're actually having sex, right? So most of the porn that's out there is hardcore porn. But you see softcore porn for the first time in your life and you're like, oh my goodness, what did I just watch? I've never seen anything like that before. But then as you progress through life and you're exposed to more and more and more of it, right? You're just sort of like, yeah, whatever. I mean, think about the first time you saw nudity in a film. You're like, oh my gosh, that's a butt. Right? And now when you're watching Netflix, there's butts all day. And you're like, yeah, cool butt, man, whatever. Well, the same goes for serial killers, right? They're just way on the other side of the spectrum. They might be watching bondage porn one day, and then they're like, you know what? I'm not really getting my rocks off anymore because the person is still alive afterwards. And they're still a safe word. They know they're safe. I want to see something where they lose the will to live. I want to see something where they no longer are safe. There's no safe word. There's no escape button. They aren't paid actresses or actors. So let's venture onto the dark web. And so some of you might understand that. Where, I mean, it's pretty well documented. So it's pretty well documented in terms of research, is that when people start watching porn, they will oftentimes become more exploratory in what they look at. And it'll continue, depending on how often you engage in that type of behavior, to evolve. And then if you were to look back at what you used to find exciting, that would pretty much no longer do anything for you. It's kind of like eating spicy food. There we go. That's a analogy that makes me feel a lot better talking about. I love spicy food. I love spicy food, okay? It used to be, because I'm old, when I right around the time I started turning 26, I had to stop eating as much spicy food because I had to start taking freaking pills because I was creating ulcers in my stomach. But it was at a point for me, and I'm not lying, I'm not hyperbolaizing, or I'm not, there's the word that I had in my head and I was gonna say it. The word is embellishing. I'm not even embellishing. You can ask my wife this. There was a time where I would eat Dave's ghost pepper sauce every day of my life on everything that I ate because I loved the spiciness. Now, if you've ever had Dave's ghost pepper sauce, that's not plain around sauce. Or was it the scorpion pepper sauce? Anyway, whatever. It was super spicy, right? But it got to the point where, habanero ain't shit, right? It got to the point where Frank's red hot sauce would be something I would eat to reduce spiciness from something more spicy that I ate. You have no idea how many wing challenges I have won. I used to love spicy food, but it started off, I remember the very, very first time I was in South Africa. The year was 1999. I was going to the Afrikaans high school for boys. I was in the 8th grade. Me and my friend Francois were coming home. His mom picked us up at swim practice. She was driving us home. She said, hey, let's go to Nando's Peri Peri. And I was like, hey, isn't that like the really spicy stuff that people eat? And they're like, no, you can get the not so spicy kind. And so I went and I got the least spicy kind, and it burned the shit out of me. I was crying. My nose was running. I was like, I can't breathe. This is so spicy. But I loved it. I loved it. And so a week later, hey, let's go to Nando's Peri Peri again. And I got a spicier level and a spicier level to the point where I would eat extra, extra hot all the time. Then I came to America, and I learned about buffalo wings. Because in South Africa, you don't do buffalo wings. You have Nando's Peri Peri, which is a gazillion times better than buffalo wings. But you got to play the cards you were dealt. And I was exposed to buffalo wings. And I started crushing it. And then I found out about burritos and that you can put all kinds of crazy peppers and sauces and stuff in them. And I became a chili head. It came to the point where I would go to the grocery store, and part of my, we'd buy carrots and we'd buy tomatoes and 2 bags of habanero peppers. And I would cook those into all my stuff. I would used to cook my wife's stuff for her, and then I would have to cook my own food that had all the spicy stuff in it. But the thing is, when I still have, and you can actually get Nando's. Nando's is in America now. In Chicago, I think, is the closest place. And they also have them in D.C. and in Baltimore. But now when I go and I have the lemon and herb, that's like nothing. It's nothing. But I used to cry out of my nose. And I think it works the same thing with pornography and killing. Right? You start off, ooh, it's a butt. And then it's like, ooh, I want to see someone get choked out. I don't know. And I think and I think with someone who's interested in hurting people, right? It starts off with emotional abuse, or maybe starts off with animals. Oh, I just watched this animal die. I just killed this bird, or I maimed this bird and I watched it die slowly. Ooh, I killed someone's cat, and that person is really upset that their cat's gone, and they don't know that I killed that cat, but they're super upset about it. That's an interesting feeling. I wonder if I did that to a dog. What about a big dog? What about a dog that lives with an old woman whose husband has already died, and all she has left is that little freaking chihuahua, and I'm going to kill it. Slowly. Maybe I'll burn it alive. No. Maybe I'll just cut its arteries. Watch it bleed out. And then I want to see how sad that woman is. Because the only thing in her life is now gone. And you get satisfaction from that. Now you're like, all right, what's next? What about a person? Right? And that's how it progresses. That's how there's this sort of cyclical aspect to fantasies, and then realizing certain aspects of them. And I think that's what they try to get across, that fantasies don't necessarily mean you're gonna kill people. So if you're sitting there like, I've had fantasies about weird stuff before, am I weird? Yes, you are weird. No, I think everyone has weird thoughts. It depends on, I guess, how you act out on them. How you deal with those thoughts. But the thing is, watching weird porn is not helpful. Maybe mindful meditate. I don't know. I don't know. It might work. It helps me with negative thoughts, right? You mindful meditate. Sometimes I get so angry I have to go mindful meditate. Or I just scream into a pillow. Or I kill someone's... No, I'm just kidding. I've never killed anyone's dogs. At least not a dog. Anyway, so lastly, with that being said, Fox, Love, and Friedel, they end this subchapter kind of going on a bit of a rant. I was actually quite surprised how much page length, given that it was only a 5-page chapter, how much of that time they spent on going after violent video games and media. They go on saying that if you look at a horror film where someone dies and from the 1960s compared to your average horror film today, the violence is far more gratuitous. And they're saying that as a society, we've become increasingly desensitized. And I think there is some truth in that. And in fact, there is some truth in it because they base these claims in some scholarly work that can be interpreted in different ways, right? It's not like they're saying it with 100% certainty, but it's certain enough, right? But here's my thing. I agree with them 100%. It has desensitized people, and frankly, Fox, Levin, and Friedel, these are distinguished scholars. And here I am, some assistant I don't even have tenure yet, and I'm teaching at a regional state school, okay? I am no one. So my opinion really doesn't mean anything. Or does it? I don't know. But I think a lot of the research, yes, we have been desensitized. We have been. 100%. Over time. We have been. But I think we've been desensitized in terms of the fake stuff we see in the media. What I mean by this is that with pornography, there's a realism aspect to it. When you're watching pornography, those people are really having sex. And if you're watching weird porn, those people are really doing weird stuff. Now, when you go into the illegal porn, well, that's real. But that's a very small portion of people that do that. But I think most people understand that when they're playing a video game, and again, do pay attention that I'm saying most, not all. When they're playing a video game, it is not real. It is not real. When we're watching a horror movie, we know that it's not real. I think that some of these claims that are being made about us being desensitized and that maybe this desensitization can fuel or exacerbate some of these fantasies, I don't buy into that necessarily. Because I think that human beings know the difference between fantasy and reality. Or at least they know the difference between fiction and nonfiction. They know that in the video game you can frickin' go on top of a tower and snipe the crap out of people. And I don't think that necessarily because you can do that in a video game that it's going to make you want to do it in real life. Yes, there have been cases where people do that. There was this one teenager who did a bunch of crazy stuff and said, well, I saw it on GTA. Well, thank you, buddy. You just ruined GTA 5 for me, right? People like that are going to get this stuff taken away from us. That's one of my favorite games of all time. That and Resident Evil 4. Because, again, I'm old. But, so my opinion is, I think humans, for the most part, stuff like Tiger King doesn't really support my point here. But humans, for the most part, are smart enough to know, well, this is reality, this is fantasy. And I think some of the claims that are being made by academics and by moral entrepreneurs that these things cause us to be more violent or can entice us to be more violent, I think those people assume that human beings don't have as much free will as I'd like to hope, or as much intelligence, ability to discern. So, what's your opinion on that? Tell me in the comments on this Facebook post or in YouTube. And again, that was just my opinion, and I'm not disagreeing with what the author said. I'm just saying that my opinion is that I think a lot of this research neglects the fact that people can discern between the two things. How do you interpret it? Let me know in the comments below.